Welcome back to Love Daniela. Episode 2, guys. Now we're starting our subjects. I came up with a few little segments we can do in every episode too because I love a segment. So, we're going to start our episodes with our highs and our lows. I want to hear about your highs and lows of the week, because I feel like we should always highlight like what we're thankful for the week, what was exciting about our week, but also acknowledge that there are going to be low points in the week too. So my high is game night with my friends and my boyfriend coming in town. He actually was at game night. It was so much fun. Like, I love a wholesome game night. That is what I prefer over going out to the club. Every time I go out to the club, I regret it. I'm like, this is not my vibe. I also don't drink like that anymore, so I just think the club is not for me. So a game night, that is exactly what I needed. I had been craving something like having a bunch of genuine people around that are just like wanting to have fun, like wine night. Everyone had their boyfriend, so it was like a couples game night. There was 4 couples and 2 of the people live here. So one person lives here with her boyfriend, and then one of my good friends and her boyfriend were there. So it was a great time. My boyfriend loved everyone. He was like, should I move here? And I'm like, yeah, like let's end that long distance tomorrow, you know? But he just left for work. So he's gone for a few days, then he comes back. Then we go to Dallas, and then we go to New York for a wedding, which I'm so excited about the New York content. By the time you're watching this, I may be in New York, or I may have just left New York. I'm really not sure about timelines right now, but I'm so excited about New York. We're staying in Soho. Something about New York really confuses me. Like, I don't understand the sections. You know, like your city, you like understand like East Austin, downtown, like Barton Springs area. Like you kind of just like get it. New York is a different place. Like, there's so much in every small little space. So I've heard Soho is cute. Couldn't tell you if I've been there. Couldn't tell you, but I've saved a bunch of TikToks of places that I want to try, like little jewelry shops, restaurants that are vegan. So I'm excited for the content. And maybe I'll bring the vlog, or not the vlog. Maybe I'll bring the podcast along. But we're really only there for a short period of time because we're going to a wedding that's outside of the city, and we're only staying in the city for pretty much like a day and a half, and then we come back. So we're still trying to figure all that stuff out, but I am excited. So anyways, that's my high. I had a really great week. My boyfriend was only here for like 3 days, but it was really fun to like I was going to say reconnect, but like see him for the first time in a month. That's always fun with long distance. And then my low this week is food poisoning. I had food poisoning for the 100th time, and I cannot break food poisoning. I haven't had it in like a good 6 months, but I had Torchy's tacos, not to put Torchy's on blast, but I had Torchy's, and I did not feel good for days. Like, I had really bad food poisoning, so that was my low. And yeah, we're back on track. Anytime, honestly, this is a pro tip. If you've ever dealt with like stomach issues or food poisoning or anything along those lines, there's this thing called You Gut This, and it's a prebiotic and probiotic drink. It's like a lot of probiotics, and you can get it from Whole Foods. They have a jug, and you take like a swig every day. It does not taste good. I will tell you that. It does not taste good, but it resets your whole gut. So I do that every so often, and so I've just been taking that every day, and now I'm feeling good. So that's my little pro tip if you're a stomach issues girly like me, because my stomach issues are so bad. But to get into this episode, we are talking about being in your 20s, and this is 26. I just turned 26 in June, which is so crazy because when I was younger, I thought 26 was so old, so mature, like you should have your life figured out. And I feel like our society kind of thinks that, like, you're 26, you should have your shit together. But really, I'm 26. Like, these are my first formative years as an adult. Like, I feel like even your early 20s, like, you still feel like a kid. Like, by the, like, 21, you start, I mean, you can drink finally. So your mid 20s, you really feel like you're figuring all your things out. And it feels like your first few years of, like, figuring out adulthood. So I feel like I'm trying not to put so much pressure on myself and like societal pressure, like, oh, you should be settled down and having kids right now. So I kind of just wanted to talk about what it's like being in your 20s and kind of just like my girls that are in your 20s, because it's a confusing time. It's really a confusing time, and we don't talk about it enough. Like, I've heard 30s are your glory years, and I'm excited for my 30s, but I'm also excited for like my late 20s, but I'm really excited for my 30s. So as I said, I turned 26 in June. I went to LA for my birthday. I spent it with my boyfriend. I have always been the type that I really don't like my birthday, like something about it. I think because I have such high expectations and they're never met. But after meeting my boyfriend, I've actually really enjoyed my birthday. Like, he always makes me feel really special. But I kind of always say, like, I only really want to hang out with you and have a fun day. Like, I don't want it to feel like my birthday, like you have to do so much for me. I just want to like go bop around and have fun and be out of the house all day. That's really my only request, is like I want to be out of the house all day. So we explored Newport Beach. Expectations on birthdays are still like so there for me. When it comes to that, I feel like next birthday, I'm really going to put my phone on do not disturb, and like at the end of the night or the next day say like thank you for all my birthday wishes and stuff. But I feel like having high expectations for like friends, or like you just want people to like match the energy. Like, if you did something for their birthday, you want them to do the same for yours. And so I need to get those expectations out of my head, because no one is going to be exactly you. And I definitely like heighten up those expectations, because I'm like, well, I did this for their birthday, they should do that for mine. But everyone's different. Everyone shows their love in different ways. So I'm also trying to accept that, like, it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be perfectly what you would do for someone else, you know? So I think next year I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb and reply the next day, because I also get very overwhelmed getting a bunch of calls, and I kind of just want to like tell my friends, hey, I love you so much, and I will reply to everyone. Like, post it on my story on my close friends or something. I'll reply to everyone tomorrow. Like, I'm enjoying my birthday. And I was telling my friend Taylor that, and she was like, I do that on my birthday. I put my phone on do not disturb. Like, and she loves her birthday. She's like, but I want to have fun. Like, I don't want to have to deal with like people on my phone. Like, I don't want to be on my phone all day. I want to like experience life. So I think that's what I'm going to try next year, is just like a little do not disturb moment and say my thank yous the following day. And that's perfectly fine. If that's what I want to do, it's my birthday, you know? So that's how I feel about birthdays. Birthdays are just like weird as you get older, but I am learning to appreciate it. Like, I love when I get older. I'm not a person that's like, don't tell my age. Every year I grow into a better version of myself. So I'm proud to be 26, because I don't want to be who I was when I was 24, 22, like anything. I want to be 26 because I worked hard to get to this person that I am at right now. But it's also okay to not know where you want to be at in your 20s. It is so okay to try things, figure out if you like it, and go on to the next. I feel like people think that you should have everything figured out by your mid-20s, late 20s, and you don't have to figure anything out for a long period of time. You're on your own journey, and you don't have to compare yourself to the people around you, because like comparing yourself also is just never good. Someone that you went to high school with that had a baby at 20 and got married when they were fresh out of high school isn't going to be on the same path and journey that you're at. And that's okay. Like, we're all meant to be on our own paths that fit us. Because if you were on that journey, you probably wouldn't be happy, because you followed what you should do. And you should always follow your gut and like what your interests are. Just follow it and see what sticks. You're allowed to try things and then be like, I don't want to do that anymore. Again, with friendships, growing out of friendships in your 20s is so normal. And I feel like if you keep the same friends, it's very rare for everyone to grow in the same path. It's very normal for like everyone to kind of go separate ways, and like you have a few friends from every walk of life. But I feel like keeping people in your life that aren't helping you grow is not good. Not good at all. And people that like hold you back from growing into the person you are, because there are people that are like, I'm not on that path, but like that's so cool for you. that's fine. But if you have people that are holding you back and they're like, why are you acting like that? Why are you doing this? Why, like, cut them off. Surround yourself with people that are going to like transcend you to your next chapter of life. And I love surrounding myself with people like that I kind of admire. Like, I love hanging out with people that have really great work drive, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I really appreciate that in someone, and it inspires me. I love hanging out with funny people that are witty, and I'm like, oh, they just don't take life too seriously. Like, you can find attributes in everyone, but if you can't find an attribute in a friend that you're like, I adore that about you, ask yourself why you're friends with them, because it's really it's really important to also like your friends. It's the same thing as in a relationship. You probably wouldn't be in a relationship with someone that had those attributes. Why are we not as picky when it comes to friends? You should be picky about the people that you surround yourself with and that you exchange your energy with. Because as you get older, you should be pickier with who you want to spend your time with. And playing on that, you should also be comfortable, or trying to be comfortable in like your alone time. I think quarantine really helped me with that, because we were kind of forced into it. And now I so much more appreciate being alone and having hobbies by myself, being comfortable. Like, I can stay inside for weeks on end and be so comfy. I try not to do that because I also don't think that's healthy, but a healthy balance of like socializing, but also being alone, I feel like is really important, especially at this stage of life. If you're in the same stage of life as me, where you live alone in your 20s, try to be alone, because there is going to be a stage of life where you're living with your partner, you're having kids. So enjoy the stage of life that you're at now. It doesn't have to look like everyone else's. You should feel thankful that you get to experience what you're experiencing right now, because some people really get in a relationship right out of high school and immediately start living together and never really get that feeling of like being able to have some independence and like find what they enjoy in this life. So I think exploration is so important in your 20s, and really exploring what you want, your interests. Like, be sad, you're allowed to be like, feel your feelings, be happy, be joyful. Like, you're allowed to make mistakes and learn from them, or don't learn from them. Like, this is your life. You're on your own journey, and it doesn't have to be like everyone else doesn't have to agree with it. And I think that's a big thing with getting older, is not seeking validation in other people's opinions of you. It takes a lot of work, but it is so rewarding when you get to that point where you care about how you feel in the situation, and you're only trying to please yourself. You're not trying to please others and what it looks like to others. I also saw this quote, I guess, on TikTok, and it says, your new life is going to cost you your old one. I love that, because you have to be okay with change if you want to be at a different stage in life. And being comfortable, like, I know more than anyone, like, being comfortable in where you are feels nice. It's better than like growing, but nothing is comfortable in growth. You have to kind of be uncomfortable, try new things that maybe aren't as comfortable, to find your highest self and what's going to make you the most happy. Because if you're just complacent your whole life, I don't feel like you're ever going to truly feel fulfilled. Also, trying to find things that interest you in your 20s is so important. And it doesn't have to align with everyone else, because I know a lot of people that I have had in my life are big partiers, are big with like other things, or they're just like in a different stage of life. And you don't have to be aligned with every single person in your life. You're allowed to try things. I was sober for a year just because I wanted to try it out. And there was definitely people like, why are you doing that? Like, oh, no fun, you can't go out with me. And there were people that were like, oh, sick, that's like so cool of you. Like, that's like, even though they don't agree with it and they didn't want to be sober, they were like, that's so cool of you. And I appreciate those people in your life. But again, it was because it was something that like my soul was calling for. Like every time I would drink, I was like, oh, like I just want to try it. And I tried it for a year, and now I've learned like a little bit more balance, and I barely drink. Like drinking isn't a big thing for me when I go out. So I'm not a big going out to the club, going out to the bars, and I rarely, and I don't really hang out with a lot of people that like that's their main interest, because I found things that I enjoy doing. I feel like I was almost pleasing people, like, oh, I'm in my 20s, I'm supposed to party, I'm supposed to be doing this. Like, you're not supposed to be doing anything, because I feel like they show you two things. It's either you're settled down with kids in your 20s, or you're partying, getting drunk every weekend in your 20s, and there's like no in between. But you're allowed to work on yourself for the greater good. Like I feel like I work on myself so much, because when I do get to the stage of wanting to settle down, wanting to have kids, I'm going to have those years of like where I could be so selfish with my time and what I'm doing with my time. I think another thing that I have been really trying to implement in my 20s especially is romanticizing my life, because I do think that my 20s are a lot slower in the way of I'm by myself more so than I was when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, every weekend was spent with so many friends, so many people. I'm also in a long distance relationship, so I spent a lot of my time alone, and I feel like I started romanticizing kind of like the mundane, where you can romanticize waking up and making yourself a cup of coffee, or your morning walks, or like waking up and rolling over and your dog is right there stretching. Like romanticizing the little things in your life is so important, and being grateful, like I get to do this every day. I get to move my body. I get to go to the gym instead of I have to, or like dreading it. It's just romanticizing those little things and looking forward to things in the day, like picking a favorite meal and being like, oh, I can't wait for that. Like, can't wait for my lunch. Like, I have this salad that I really love, and I feel like I romanticize it every day. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to go like eat my salad at 1:00, my little lunchtime that I take, because obviously I work for myself. So I just romanticize those little things in life to make everyday life more fulfilling. And I think that's something that everyone should do, to become more thankful and to become more grateful of the life that you live. Just because it doesn't look like someone that has everything doesn't mean that your life is meaningless. I also want to say that it's very normal, again, with friendships to come and go, ebbs and flows. It's also normal for you to be close with friends, but also just because you're not close with someone because you're at different stages of life does not mean that you're a bad friend or they're a bad friend. You can be in very different stages of life, and someone could be aligning more with you than another friend that aligned with you years prior. And if your friends are understanding, I feel like it just happens naturally. Like my best friend of, I want to say, how many years? It was 6th grade. I'm like, someone do the math. Maybe 13 years. My best friend of 13 years, like we've had so many moments where we like don't talk as often, but then moments where we're like, we can't go a week without FaceTiming. And we've never made each other feel bad for that, because we know that life is happening, and at the end of the day, we're there for each other. So also be just intentional with the people that you surround yourself, and make sure that they're understanding with you're always going to be at different stages of life. It's kind of impossible that you always will line up with a friend in your life 24/7 for many, many years. It is normal to have moments where maybe you're not closer than you used to be. I also think it's very normal with the friendship thing, with relationships, like romantic relationships, where things can end because you're growing in different directions. And that doesn't mean that you don't have love for someone. That could just mean that you grew apart. And I feel like when we get to this age, there's so much pressure on it where you're like, well, this is supposed to be my partner because I have a timeline. And us as women, we kind of like have a ticking like timeline because we're like, oh, you're supposed to have a baby by this point. But don't fall into the societal pressure of I have to stay with this person because my plan was to have a baby by 27 and I'm 25. So like I've got to kind of stick it out because that's what my life plan was. Your life plan can change, and don't settle for less because of what you thought your plan was, because I really did think I would have babies by now. When I was 18, I was like, by the time I'm 25, I will be married and I will definitely be pregnant by now. I'm 26. I live alone. I am in a relationship, but like I probably won't have babies for many years. And I allowed myself to change what my goals were in the timeline that I put on myself. Take each day as it is and allow yourself to grow, because you're not living on anyone else's timeline. You're living on your own timeline. So that's pretty much my thought process on your 20s. I also want to end each episode with a quote, just because I'm a big quote girl. I want to start reading more, so some of them will be coming from books that I'm reading, but this one I found online, and it is from R.M. Drake, which I love her books. So I feel like I'm going to get more into reading just from this podcast and this segment. But this says, this is your life. You're allowed to change your mind, to change your heart. You're allowed to be a different person, to wake up one day and not want to do the things you've been doing all your life. You're allowed to love who you want, to move on from the people who are not good to you, to let go of anyone without any kind of explanation, without any kind of regret. You're allowed to make mistakes, to learn from them or not to learn from them, and experience everything all over again. You're allowed to forget your past if you want to, or to stay in it, but you must also understand that this is not how you will grow. You're allowed to change careers, to dress differently, to chase different dreams, to change locations, even if at first you're terrified to do so. You're allowed to dislike yourself, but also allowed to change those same parts you don't see eye to eye with, to work on them until you're completely comfortable with who you are. This is your life. Make it count. Make your own validation, your own path, your own way of life. You are enough and you are not broken. You are a lot stronger than you want to believe. Now breathe. I like literally reading that. I don't know if you can tell, I have goosebumps. I just think that kind of wraps up everything with what I was touching on in this podcast episode. Is this is your life and you can do absolutely anything you want in this life, and believe it with everything in your soul, in your being. You can change your path the next day. You can have a path that you have been going on for years, and the next day wake up and say, I want my life to be different, and you're allowed to do that. You are allowed to do that. I was lucky enough to have a mom that was like, do what feels right. Don't ever fall into a career that you dread going to every day. Don't be in a relationship that you don't want to be in. Like, I had a mom that very much told me to follow my gut instincts. So if no one's ever told you that, you're allowed to pick up and go at any point in your life. That's my piece. I really have goosebumps from that quote. But if you guys have anything that you want me to talk about, if you have any advice, I do want to start giving advice on the podcast. So if you want to DM me or comment on one of my TikToks, Instagram, anything like that, please DM me. I would love to touch on it in the podcast if you want me to. If not, I'll just DM you, because I love you guys. And thank you so much for listening. I'll have all my links down below. Come say hi. I love you.